I started Surviving Skye with the goal of bringing more awareness to my sister Skye's disappearance. And I thought the best way to do this would be to start a podcast. That way I can really get into the details and bring some humanity to this case. The truth is, I didn't know how to start a podcast. So when I discovered Spotify for podcasters, it had everything I needed. I could record, edit, and then send it out to all the streaming platforms out there. I didn't need to take too much time getting hung up on all the technical aspects. So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you have something that you're passionate about and you just feel like you can inform the world about what you know, then why not start a podcast and check out Spotify for podcasters today? I hope everybody's doing well today. I just wanted to take a moment and express my deepest gratitude for all the listeners who have been taking the time to listen to Skye's story and my story. I know this isn't the most conventional podcast, but for me, it is it's such a great outlet to get this information out there and to make a story like this, I guess, more relatable. I know often a missing persons case kind of gets overlooked, and often people's biases and assumptions on what and how and why a person went missing often leads to, it's just, there's a lot of negative connotations and a question of a person's worth. So I really want to extend my thanks for sticking with me and in my quest to get answers and to spread awareness about like the average person, I guess, the everyday person, and what happens when they go missing. It's been a crazy journey, and I'm happy to finally be documenting everything, to give a face and a voice to people who, are just trying to make sense of it all, whatever you may be facing. So in this episode, it's going to be a little different because obviously that's what I do. I just do what I have to do in the moment, and I just wanted to give you an update on Skye's case. As many of you know, last year I was able to get a new detective on Skye's case. And in that process, we found out that the family's DNA, which was submitted back in 2008, was not properly handled. It was not input into the Interpol database. A yellow notice for Interpol, which is for missing people, was never filed. A black notice was never filed, and that's to check the morgues across the world. And upon realizing that, the detective was able to access the family's DNA in the Connecticut State Lab and was able to, submit it to Interpol. And that was last year. So, over the past few months, I have been reaching out to the police department because as a civilian, you cannot actually just reach out to Interpol for information. It has to be through another police or law enforcement entity. So, something you may hear me talk about is just the bureaucratic process. and all the red tape and all the time it takes to actually get something done. And during all that, the detective that I was, so happily working with, well, he got a new position. So this was maybe only honestly 2 months after he started looking into Skye's case. And he assured me that Skye's case was going to be passed on to another detective, and I patiently waited and waited. And I didn't hear anything. And I reached out to the Southington Police Department a few times, and I got no replies. And I waited because, after 15 years of, trying to work this cold case, what was another few months, I guess? It was just part of what happens when the system just kind of breaks you down. So I finally, had enough. And I reached out a few more times to the Southington Police Department. And while I was doing that, I also contacted NamUs, which is the National Missing and Unidentified Person System. And I really hadn't had much luck with them either in the past, but I finally got in touch with somebody. And while I was talking with this person at NamUs, I also asked about if they were able to offer any assistance in getting a lawyer to help me get the police records out of Japan. And what they said was, "Oh, wow, that's interesting, huh? That's actually difficult to do." And he referred me to another situation, another case that he had dealt with, and told me that the only thing that he knew about was to contact the consulate. And I told him that I already went down that route, and they couldn't offer me any legal advice or even offer just I wasn't really looking for legal advice. I just wanted do you know any law firms that could help me in the area? Anything like that, anything that you work with. And they weren't able to provide me any of that info. And I told the representative at NamUs this, and he was like, yes, it gets tricky when you're dealing with another country. And I was like, I know. But so since he couldn't help me there, I did proceed to ask him if he would be able to help me with getting any information to Interpol or getting the Southington Police Department to actually ask, to push for some assistance. And he agreed that he would email the Southington Police Department on my behalf. And at that point, I was like, thank you. I mean, any assistance is great. And I then proceeded to I gave it till the next day to compose the email of questions that I wanted him to ask the Southington Police Department. But luckily in that morning, the next day, I received 2 emails from the Southington Police Department, one from the previous detective that was on the case in the beginning. And he had told me, he apologized, of course, and told me that the case had been assigned, and that he assumed that the detectives had already reached out to me, which they had not. And then he also let me know that he had not received any confirmation from Interpol about Skye's, about the DNA and the yellow and the black notice. So he left it there. And then the other email was from the new detective on the case, apologizing, of course. Lovely. Apologies do not, rewind time. It doesn't give me back the time that has been lost. And he assured me that he would be looking into or contacting Interpol to see the status of Skye's case. So, with all that said, I know, all of that. I could have just said it quicker. There is no new news, and it's still been a year since I've been pushing to get the family's DNA into Interpol. And I can go onto Interpol and I can see that Skye's information has not been updated. And another thing is I don't know if they're just missing information, because obviously, the systems that are in place do not communicate well with one another, let alone the people needing these answers. So that is where we are at. Still, no new movement, just movements in conversation, but nothing to actually move the case forward, which is so aggravating. It's such a frustrating process because the family has already waited 15 years. The DNA was submitted 15 years ago. And there's no repercussions for this lack of follow through on these systems that I have to rely on, So just a glimpse into what the process is actually like when you are trying to find a missing person. It's unfortunately, I wish it was like the movies or TV. It would be, I don't know, more exhilarating. Maybe you can actually get stuff done, but all of that isn't real. And the reality is our systems are broken. And I hope with me talking about this to whatever audience it reaches, that it just gives you some pause to think about what we're living within, what we allow. So, I think that's my update for today. I'll probably do another therapy note session pretty soon. Because I always got that stuff to talk about. But until then, this has been an update on Skye's case. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for your interest in this type of, I don't even know what this is called, this type of reality. If you do feel compelled, you can always help donate to the podcast. And to be honest, I think you could just do it on Spotify or the website. I'm asking, and I don't even know where to do this. If you have seen my latest TikTok, I am the worst at self-promotion. It just feels so cringe to me. But I'm going to work on that. Because this is something that I've been spending so much time doing, and it's a lot of time and effort, and I want to continue to do it. And honestly, to continue doing it, I need a little help, if you know what I mean. So until next time, my friends, thank you for listening to Surviving Skye, and have a wonderful day.